Okay, says we're live, so I trust that we're live. Good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. We're just, according to Seth, 13 days out from Election Day, and here we are talking to another local candidate. But before we start, I just wanted to say a couple quick points. I was just telling Seth that the only purpose of doing these is my general curiosity to know some of the candidates, and I broadcast these conversations, as I call them, on Facebook. Sometimes we get a lot of views, sometimes we get less. I don't know how to look at those numbers exactly. Sometimes people will ask questions during the podcast and will ask. Sometimes I'll ask afterwards. And if they do, Seth, I invite you to answer any questions you're comfortable answering. So that's the purpose of this. And we've had a number of people on. I also want to say that this is the first time we're doing a podcast since the horrible tragedy in Israel. And one of the things that I get to do with this is pretty much whatever I want, right? So I'll share my personal opinion. That was horrible, barbaric. I know there's a lot of controversy. I'm not exactly sure why. That was complete terrorism. I don't know what else anyone needs to know or to see. And so my deepest sympathies to the people of Israel. And of course, Israel has a right to protect itself. It's not even a question, and it's ridiculous that some people are suggesting otherwise. So my 2 cents. And let me introduce to you a candidate running for Nassau County Legislature for the 5th Legislative District. Joining us tonight is Seth Koslow. And Seth, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Seth, let's just talk for a moment. I said the 5th Legislative District, but a lot of people still don't know what the maps look like. So where is the 5th Legislative District?
Sure. So because of the redistricting with the new maps that came out in February, the new Legislative District 5 is comprised of pretty much all of Freeport, like 90% of Freeport, and then most of South Merrick, south of Sunrise Highway. And then when you go north of Sunrise Highway in Merrick, it's most or a portion of North Merrick, not including Merrick Woods, and then a small portion in North Belmore, but it's primarily South Merrick and most of Freeport.
Interesting. And you mentioned the redistricting. I know there's been a lot of controversy. Where are we with the process of that? Is this district now set, and is this the way it's going to be, or is it still subject to appeal, or where are we with the redistricting?
Well, the Nassau County Democrats did file a lawsuit to try and challenge the redistricting. It's not going to affect this election cycle, based on the nature of the way the court system works. So for this campaign cycle and election cycle, and an election coming up on November 7th, it's set for now, and whatever happens in the court system will bear out what happens next.
Okay. All right. So that's a little background on the district. We have some questions coming in right off the jump, Seth. So that's good. Well, Seth, before we start, give us a little introduction of who you are and your background professionally, and how you got into this race.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Long Island. I grew up in Baldwin. I've lived in Baldwin all through high school. When I went to college in Washington, D.C., I went to American University. I spent my 4 years for college down there. I moved back home right after college. My parents had moved to Belmont. Then I spent some time in Limbrook, bounced around doing sales jobs for a while, and eventually went to law school, where I got my JD from Toro in Central Islip, and went immediately to work for the Queens District Attorney's Office as a prosecutor. I spent 3 years as a prosecutor, prosecuting everything from misdemeanors to felonies. And then when I left there, I ended up on my own, starting my own practice, doing primarily criminal defense work. I've done some family court work, but it's mostly anything involving the police. I live in Merrick now. I have 3 young kids and my wife. We live in the Merrick School District. All 3 of my kids are in the schools. I have 2 in Lakeside and 1 in Birch. For fun, I like to cook and volunteer as a baseball coach for my kids' travel baseball team and Little League team. And I go to as many sports events and dance competitions and gymnastics classes as I can, while trying to balance family options, family activities, my business, and all those fun things.
Understood. You're a busy man.
Yeah, why not run for office too?
All right, Seth. Our friend Valerie asks a question. She says, Ray, can you please ask Seth what his top 3 issues, your top 3 issues that you're running on, Seth?
Certainly. Valerie, thanks for the question. I appreciate that. So my main 3 issues are affordability. It's getting to the point now that it's almost impossible to live here, raise a family here, and the next generation, my kids and their kids, are never going to be able to do that. So I want to make it more affordable, bringing down taxes, making houses more affordable, giving more opportunities for people to live here, work here, and raise their families. Along with that is infrastructure issues we have. I think it goes hand in hand with the affordability issue. With all the sinkholes we saw this summer, and the fact that we have aging infrastructure, we need to reinvest in the county to make sure people can live here and work here. A second issue I have is community safety. Being that Freeport and Merrick are involved in the district, community safety is a varying term depending on where you go. Our police do a great job of keeping us safe, and crime is for the most part going down. But I want to work with the community leaders and the police to try and reduce the property crimes we have in Merrick, for example, with all the cars and the car crimes we have with people stealing the pieces that the cars need to operate and breaking into homes, things like that, and people's cars being stolen out of their driveway. At the same time, in Freeport, we have an issue with an unfair criminal justice system negatively affecting communities of color and Latin communities. So I'm working with community leaders and also the 3 police unions that have endorsed me to try and fix community policing and community safety on a holistic level. So that's my second issue. And the third thing I'm running on is trying to get more money and opportunity for youth programs, so our kids have more to do besides just school and or a sporting event. I want more arts programs, science programs, things for them to do outside of school, so that they're not just sitting around on their bikes causing trouble and they don't feel like they have anything else they can do.
Okay. Seth, we'll get back to a couple of those points, but let me ask you a question from Ashley. Ashley asks, Seth, can you please ask Seth what he would do about people with disabilities? Will it be very inclusive? So I know Ashley is very involved with the differently abled community. Any thoughts, Seth, on the people with disabilities and how we can help them in the county?
Well, I think we have to do everything we can to make it possible for the differently able to be a part of everyday society, whether it's providing more ramps, whether it's providing more elevator access, whatever it is. I can't speak specifically to what I would do because I don't know specifically what issues have arisen. And what I tell my clients all the time is I can't fix the problem unless you tell me what the problem is. So I'm absolutely open to whatever we can to make it as inclusive as possible, because we're all one community and we should all have that opportunity to be a part of that community. So to the extent I can do anything to provide that at a county level, I absolutely would fight for that and work for that, because it has to be fair for everybody, no matter what you look like, what you're built like, or what issues or concerns you have. We should be able to address those concerns for you.
Seth, let me ask you about the hot button topic of the migrant crisis and your thoughts about how Nassau County has reacted and should react to the situation. Your general thoughts.
So look, the migrant issue is something that has become politicized and has become political warfare for unfortunate reasons. And I think it's a problem that politicians are using to distract from the real issue. We're a nation built on immigrants. That's how we started. That's how we continue to grow. And I think we need to work with, or rather the federal government needs to work with the state government to figure out a way to get these immigrants who are coming in here, who are seeking safety and solace from the persecution and issues they're having in their own countries. We have to find a way to give them an opportunity here in this country, and holding them in shelters and not giving them an opportunity to work is just causing more and more delay. And the federal government and the state need to work together to figure out a way to get work permits so these people can start being productive members of society, which is what they want to do. They're seeking the American dream. And how do you do that? You get out there and you work. I've spoken to countless business owners who tell me they don't have enough people who actually want to work. And there's job availability that nobody's willing to do because people aren't willing to work, let's say in a restaurant, or let's say for a landscaping company, or whatever it is. We have a tremendous group of people that could do that work if we could just get them the ability to get the work permits. It's an issue that we have to fight at a federal and state level more so than a county level, but it's something I think we could all benefit from if the state and federal government can get that together.
Okay. Seth, following up on that, and I guess as a follow up to Valerie's question, you're obviously running for the county legislature, which is a county position. So, how would you evaluate the job that the county executive Blakeman's been doing? Yeah, I guess now he's in year one of his term, right? He won, no, year two. The time flies. So how do you evaluate his performance so far?
I don't think he's done much except make promises that he hasn't kept. We have an issue with the assessment situation that hasn't been fixed. He promised to fix that. Nothing's changed. Excuse me. Nothing's changed. People's taxes are still going higher and higher. It hasn't been fixed, and there's no real end in sight. And all he's doing now is taking his attention, or taking as much attention as he can for himself, to make sure everyone knows that he's the county executive. I think he needs to be held accountable, and I think he needs people to work with him to figure out a way to actually fix the problems. Whether he inherited them or created them is not the issue. It's how he can fix them, since there are issues. And I think we all know that the county's getting more expensive. Taxes keep going up. Everything's getting more and more expensive. We have Liberty Water and all the other utilities that are trying to raise our rates, and we have to do something to protect our communities, and he's just not doing any of it.
Is there hope for anything to happen on assessment? I know the previous executive, Laura Curran, tried, and it seemed to start and not go very far. Is there any hope on this with assessment? I mean, is this something that the average person can expect to see sometime in our lifetime, or is this where do you think we're ending up with assessment, Seth?
So I am forever optimistic. It's just who I am. I think if the right people are put into position of power and can make the right agreements and have the right conversations and figure out the right options we have, I think we can fix it. I haven't been there yet to really make that happen, but if I come from a background in sales and business, and it's at the end of the day, we're talking about business here. We're talking about the amount of money coming into the county, how we spend it, how we use it. And if we can return it back to the county, we can figure out a way to reduce taxes, and then we can figure out a way to properly assess what properties are worth, with taking into consideration what people are using their houses for and actually doing a proper assessment. I think it can be fixed, but it's going to take work, and people have to understand it shouldn't be driven by political benefit. It has to be driven by what's best for the community.
Seth, I saw something. I'm going to ask you a question that I don't fully know the answer to, meaning I don't know the entire issue. I saw something on my phone briefly, and I figured let me ask you about it, but I haven't checked it myself. I believe the Democratic minority in the legislature is calling for the removal of the chairman of the hospital. Can you shed some light on that? And do you share their opinion that he should be removed? I don't know enough about the issue, but I did see something today popped up.
Quite frankly, that's the first I've heard of it. I've been focused on the campaign more so than what the Democratic caucus is trying to do. I'm not involved in that. I'm not privy to those conversations because those are confidential until they go public or something like that. And quite frankly, I don't know anything about it. I don't want to speak on something I'm not versed on at all.
Understood. And regarding the, obviously, it sounds like your district is all of the town of Hempstead, right? So you're entirely the town of Hempstead. How do you see? I know you're running for the county level, but how do you feel the town has been? You have any criticism of the town? I know you're running for the county, but you're going to be working. If you win, you'll be working with the town as well. What are your thoughts on the town of Hempstead and that government?
I think we could benefit from a change in the guard, not necessarily an entire change in the guard, but I think we've had a Republican-led town of Hempstead for 100 years. I think it is. It's been an eternity. We've had a turnover of the same names over and over again for years, and I think some new blood and fresh eyes is always beneficial. I'm not saying that the Republicans have done anything necessarily terribly bad that has really hurt us and we need to replace them all, but it's not a bad idea to have new eyes on an issue to try and fix it. We're not obviously perfectly set out because we have our own issues as far as taxes and infrastructure and all the reasons why I'm running, and there are concerns that you hear at a town level, albeit I'm not hearing much of it because I'm not running in the various town of Hempstead itself. I'm only really limited to American Freeport, but in talking to my counterparts and also some of the other people who are running for council, there are concerns people have. There are issues they want resolved that don't necessarily matter to a Republican-led majority in the town of Hempstead. So bringing in more Democrats to get a different perspective I think would lead to better conversations and better resolutions to issues that otherwise are being overlooked.
You mentioned public safety from the outset. Where do you see the county right now? I mean, safety has been an issue over the last few years. Is Nassau County safe? Can we get safer? What are the challenges exactly with safety in Nassau County?
So again, it's a multifaceted issue because I think, yes, we are a very safe county. And I love that about living here. And I can tell you that both from being a resident, but also from being a criminal defense attorney that practices in Nassau County. I know it's very different here than it is in the boroughs. Our crime levels are much lower. Our crime rates are much lower. And that's a wonderful thing to have living here. But I also know that in Freeport, as I said before, you tend to have more of an unjust criminal justice system impacting those communities, not necessarily physical violence or even criminal violence, but oftentimes you see communities of color and Latin communities being affected by false accusations, false arrests, false prosecution, things like that, which is what I do a lot of in fighting for my clients' rights. So I want to work to try and make sure that all the police unions and the police officers have a better understanding of how to approach car stops and how to deal with people who have mental health issues. And a function of that is giving them more training and more tools and resources they can use. And that's not me saying they're doing anything wrong. That's me talking to the police and then telling me, we need more training, we need more resources. And the fact that I'm a defense attorney and a Democrat, and I'm endorsed by 3 separate police unions goes a long way. Because they understand there are issues that have to be worked out, and they're willing to work with me to make that happen.
Well, I was going to kind of tease you about that. You brought it up before I could bring it up again. But what's the inside scoop? The police unions aren't always friendly to Democrats. How'd you get that endorsement, and what was the key to that?
So a big part of that, I think, is the fact that the police unions actually took the time to get to know the candidate. They didn't say, "Oh, he's a Democrat, forget it." And a big problem we have with local level elections is a trickle down effect of people think, oh, the Democrat, I can't vote for him because I'm a Republican, or vice versa. But at the end of the day, we're talking about hyper local issues that you need people who speak to your values and speak to what's important to you. And don't just assume that the Democrat is, as the Republicans say, anti-police and pro-crime. That's not realistic. That's not true. That's just the story that they sell and the hype they want you to believe. The police took their time to get to know me. They took their time to look into me and find out about my background and realize that I'm a common sense, middle of the road Democrat who wants what's best for the community and not just the mantra that they want you to believe a Democrat believes. I spent this morning at the Merrick train station with the PBA members, handing out flyers, talking to community members about who I am and what I do, because they want me in office, because they want me to work with them, knowing that I'm, quote unquote, the opposition as a criminal defense attorney. And it's a function of getting to know me and what I'm about. And that's why they made that decision.
Seth, if you win the election, are there any specific committees that you would like to be part of in the legislature? What areas do you want to work on?
So I want to work on community safety, as I said. I think being on the rules committee is important because it plays a vital role in the everyday function of the county. But otherwise, I'm open to whatever options I think I can play the best role in. I want to see what opportunities are available, where there are openings that I could fit on, and where I think it also depends on who wins this campaign, these campaigns, because if it's a super majority, then it doesn't really matter where I go. If it's if we pick up a couple seats and it's 10-9, there's a lot more work that can be done, and my role may have more or less value in a given committee.
Okay. And Seth, let me ask you about what are your thoughts and how do you think we in general should think about NYFA? It seems like a lot of people have heard of NYFA, not really familiar. Some people know who they are a little bit more. But of course, the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority, basically the people behind the scenes who manage the county's money. What are your thoughts? There's been some talk about people saying that they're not needed, they should be disbanded. What are your thoughts on NYFA?
So look, we were in a bad spot. NYFA came in and took us back up from a bad place. We've gotten a higher bond rating because of it. We're going in the right direction. I think that we can't just get rid of them right now, but I do think it's worth a conversation to figure out an exit strategy with, of course, the understanding that we'll have safeguards and protocols in place so that we don't just revert back to the problems we had that got us in a position that we needed NIFA. An exit strategy, kind of weaning ourselves away from NIFA, whether it's keeping them on as consultants or just a 5-year program, a 3-year program, whatever it is. But I think eventually we have to have an eye on separating ourselves from them so we can just run our county the way we want to run it with the protections in place so we don't screw it up again.
Seth, let's talk politics for a moment. What's your path to victory? I mean, the conventional wisdom is that Democrats tend to want to get Democratic vote out and turn out the base. Is that the path, or are you trying to appeal to independents, Republicans? What's your path to victory?
Look, the easiest path to victory is, we have a 9,000 registered voter advantage, right? If you just look at the sheer numbers of registered voters and Democrats to Republicans. So we have the advantages there. So we're knocking on the doors of the Democrats and telling them, listen, we need your vote, come out and vote, otherwise we lose. But because of the endorsements I've gotten from the police unions and the labor unions and the school unions and whatnot, they're helping me by going to those independents and the Republicans who might be on the fence, and they're pushing the vote my way also. So we're trying to hedge against the fact that Democrats often don't turn out in off years by getting some more Republican votes through those unions and endorsements that I've gotten, with the understanding that we're just getting out there and talking to everybody and letting them know the importance of getting out there for this vote and reminding people how important the local elections are, because as I said before, it affects them directly.
I'll give you a moment, Seth, just to talk about, you're obviously running for Nassau County Legislature, but what are your thoughts about the country, the world, the state, anything you want to chime in on outside of the scope of the county?
I mean, there's a lot going on. This is my first time running for any sort of office, elected office whatsoever. I was never politically active or involved, but I'm learning a lot in the last 6 months. And we need change. We need something new. We need new blood. We need new eyes. We need new options and ideas, because the world's changing rapidly. And we have a lot of, and on both sides of the table, at least at the federal level, we have a lot of the same politicians running the country, and we need to figure out different options. And now I'm not looking for any sort of federal position at this point. I'm not looking to go to Albany or even Albany or DC, but starting at the base level, at the local level, we need new ideas and new perspectives on how to resolve the issues that face us directly. We have a lot of issues outside of the country that we're dealing with, that we have to protect our allies and our friends. We have to protect our own citizens. But at a base level, my focus right now is like you said, just at the county level. That's all I'm focusing on.
Seth, I'll get you a question. I get you in trouble, I guess. But the CD4 race, everyone's always been focused on CD3, which is currently occupied by George Santos. But on the South Shore, we have our CD4 race, and we have 2 Democratic candidates who have announced so far. Laura Gillen, former supervisor, former candidate, and Senator Kevin Thomas. I know you've been busy with your campaign. Have you formed a judgment yet as to who you're supporting in that campaign? Any thoughts?
I have not. No, I've been so focused on what I'm doing and just trying to make sure I get my votes out. That I suppose after I take a nap on November 8th, I'll start looking into that.
Yeah. And let me ask you, how can people, if they want to get involved with your campaign in the remaining 13 days, which actually we were saying is less than that because early voting starts Saturday, right? You said so.
The 28th to the 5th, yep.
Election day is upon us, but if somebody wanted to get involved at this point, how do they reach you, Seth?
So my Facebook page, Seth Koslow for Legislator. My website is sethkoslow.com. Shoot me an email at friendsofkoslow@gmail.com, and we can get you set up with our field team. We've hit over 8,200 doors between knocking and phone calls. I've been to almost a dozen houses of worship, had 4 different press conferences and fundraising events. I mean, we've been out there meeting with people, and we're not done. We have a couple more weekends to go. I can tell you that on a daily basis for the next 13 days, I have multiple events I'm going to. meet the candidates. I'm going to the Rotary Club tomorrow night for a little while. I'll be at the Belmore Fair over the weekend. There's just plenty of options and places we can be. Freeport's homecoming game is this weekend. There's a parade on the Nautical Mile. So, I'm running around getting to every single place we can. And the more people that are there that can help talk to people with me, the better.
I guess this will be our last question. And I thank you for your time tonight, Seth. What are you hearing from people? I mean, just generally, whether it's politics or not, are people out there? I mean, the number of doors you're knocking on, you're coming in contact with a lot of people, as you mentioned. Are people okay? Are people nervous? Are they afraid? Are they optimistic? What's your general sense on what you're hearing from people?
People are excited when I get to the door and I tell them I'm running. They're appreciative of the fact I'm willing to do that because, it's one of those things that if you've never stepped on into the political realm, it's certainly a new experience. It takes on a lot of confidence and ability to go out and just knock on someone's door and see what they're going to say. I see that. Just do you want to touch on Valerie asked a question if I'm knocking on any non-Dem doors. I've knocked on some doors that are quite frankly are not Democrat doors, but at the end of the day, if we're trying to win, we're going to the Democrats because that's what we want to do to win. And it's not taking sides here, but Senator Kevin Thomas explained it to me when I first met him that when we're going knocking on doors, we're not trying to convert atheists into believers. We're trying to get the Christians back to church. So it's a lot easier to convince a Democrat to go vote and let them know we need their vote than it is to convince a Republican who may or may not be hostile towards just Democrats in general. So because we're just trying to win this and then make a change, it's just a numbers game and going to the right doors. But people are very receptive and very responsive to me when I tell them what I'm running for, and they're saying that they're looking for a voice. They're looking for someone to be the person that can represent them at a county level and bring down the affordability issues and increase the infrastructure investments so that we are in a place that our kids can live here, work here, and grow here like we all did.
All right, Seth. Well, I appreciate your time tonight. It looks like there are a couple more questions, but if you can chime in afterwards and just type in some comments or some answers, appreciate it. And thanks for your time tonight. I wish you the best of luck. And Seth Koslow, running for Nassau County Legislature, the 5th Legislative District. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.